Well, another Super Bowl came and went, and with it, a bunch of people want to show off what they've got. And I'll zero in on one in particular, the little Marvel superhero film that is forgotten and probably will remain forgotten. I don't know, despite the fact that it might not deserve to be forgotten. It's sandwiched in between Captain America and Brave New World and the Fantastic Four. Brave New World, of course, is more well known, but for all the wrong reasons. It's all negative, and it's been, hounded by all kinds of problems and massive reshoots and all that stuff. And then, which, look, I'll allow to say it was clumsy comments by Anthony Mackie and what have, but whatever. One more problem on top of a multitude of problems for the film. So Thunderbolts is the movie that follows this one. And I thought the two might have been somewhat connected. And I suppose in a way, but, I mean, of course, MCU movies are all supposed to be connected, but I mean, certain elements within it. I thought the story would go that they're called Thunderbolts, because of Thunderbolt Ross, is president. I'm assuming he's still president unless he doesn't survive Captain America, but what have you, he might have okayed an initiative for this team to be formed and so on and so forth. A lot of it, the characters are recognizable to me because I've seen all the projects they've been a part of. With the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character, she's been introduced a lot more in D+. I'm trying to recall if she was in any of the movies, and I'm blank. I think maybe she did appear in a post-credit scene for Black Widow. Now, Black Widow introduced Yelena, who's basically, Black Widow's sister, and now she's the new Black Widow, essentially, and will be a part of this team. And then her stepfather, the Red Guardian, is also a part of it and all that. But okay, so if you saw that movie, then you know those two. You know Bucky. Ghost you might remember from the Ant-Man movie, the second one, not the third one, which nobody cares for. It's unfortunate because I liked the Ant-Man movies, the first two anyway. And then, of course, Taskmaster, the gender swap. Ghost is a gender swap too, but Taskmaster was even more ridiculous of a gender swap. And so she was in Black Widow. So if you saw that, you're up to date on those. Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell's son, plays the U.S. agent who was a Captain America wannabe, and that was all a part of Falcon and Winter Soldier series, which, of course, was on D+. So if you didn't see that, you don't know. He was one of the more, and probably the only real interesting part of that show, which was very bad and had a terrible ethic in which they made their new Captain America and Sam Wilson be sympathetic for a mass murderer anyway. But here he is looking for another chance at redemption in that. But of course, but nevertheless, no matter how well he performed the character and everything, most people probably don't know who he is. So there's, things like that you're going to have to deal with. So the setup for it was those shows. If the movie can handle that anyway, and just you're being introduced to some characters you might vaguely recall, Bucky you'll know because of Captain America, and he was in quite a few of the Marvel movies, so it might be enough. So this is like the second trailer that they released, and it does give a few more signs of the big bad in it, or rather the big threat. And that would be the character of the Century, whom they had to recast. It was originally going to be, what's his name? I'm forgetting, from The Walking Dead, But anyway, he dropped out. And I don't know if they had shot anything with him in it or not. But anyway, this other guy is playing the character. It's fine. But you saw elements of, he plays a character who's very powerful, and he has a superhero persona and a supervillain persona. So it's like his dark side comes to the forefront because he can't control his inner thoughts because he's so powerful. It's some elements of that. And that's how the Century comic book series played out. And it looks like they're sticking to that more or less. Sounds like the origin's a little different. But you saw elements of what he can do very briefly, but it's there. Now, this team they've assembled are nowhere near the necessary power requirements to take this guy on. Most of them are just, you know, special forces level type people, with the exception of, I guess, Ghost. You know, she has the power to phase through things. She might be the only one who could survive an attack by this guy. And that's about it. So a leak of the plot did come out some time ago, and somebody tweeted this out yet again just to remind people what the plot would be, and I thought I'd revisit it. There's a few elements I don't recall, so maybe it's updated, but both trailers seem to confirm pretty much what was in it. And leaks about Marvel movies came out a long time ago, and just about all of it came true. Some of those movies won't happen because of the Kang the Conqueror stuff going bad with the Jonathan Majors scandal and everything. But nevertheless, it's looking like, yeah, this will be how it unfolds. So supposedly, and this is spoilers, so even though the trailers and teasers pretty much tell you what's up, but nevertheless, if you don't want to hear any of this, then this is where you should depart from this video. So Yelena, the new Black Widow, U.S. Agent, Ghost, Taskmaster, Bucky, and Red Guardian, all previously villains and anti-heroes in the MCU, have been trying to find new purpose in their lives as they feel aimless and drifting. That's what happens when you are looking for purpose, you know. The first four are currently doing contract work as assassins for Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, that's the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character, and are all sent separately in a secret, or on a secret mission, I probably wrote it wrong, as a vault, at a vault in the middle of the desert. There they stumble into each other for the first time, but they also stumble into another, a man in a hospital gown who had been trapped in the vault, called Bob. Now, Bob will probably it's going to be Bob Reynolds, who is the Sentry. And they've already shown bits and pieces of this scene in previous teasers and whatnot. And so this sounds exactly like what happens there. They're all there on the same mission. But they don't know each other. So why is that? So, well, before they can realize what's going on, the lights go out and an ominous 1-minute countdown starts. As they escape, they realize this was a trap, you don't say, and that someone must want them all dead. They also save Bob from the vault, and they all go on the run while henchmen from an organization called Ox, O-X-E, are after them. What they'll soon learn is that Ox is owned by Valentina herself. What? Who is revealed to be the infamous buyer of the Avengers Tower, the building where she now lives. Now, that's kind of an interesting take on this, and it would be fitting because the original Thunderbolts story was nothing like this. But one thing they did do was take over the Fantastic Four's building. The Baxter building had been destroyed, but they built a new one. I guess it was the Four Freedoms Tower, they called it, or whatever. And it had the four emblem at the top of it around, and they changed it to their lightning bolt symbol for their team. And they did this because at that time in Marvel Comics, the world believed that the Avengers and the Fantastic Four had died, when really they were sent off to an alternate Earth. And this sort of, it's a long-winded explanation, but so the Thunderbolts showed up to fill the void left by the Avengers. But they made their headquarters in the old Fantastic Four headquarters. Here, well, they'll just do it in the Avengers Tower now that there's no Avengers. You know, none of the MCU movies ever said the Avengers were gone, that the surviving members didn't reform a new team with new members and stuff like that. They could have done that. But apparently that's not the case, and I guess the Captain America movie will deal with that as well, because apparently the president wants Sam to form a new team and all that. And so here come the Thunderbolts, in this iteration of it all. But very, very far afield from the original story, which was very clever, where you had former supervillains posing as these superheroes. The problem with the MCU is they really haven't established many of their supervillains to be, upfront enough to be ones that could carry movies and do this to where it would be this sort of shocking thing that these new characters are actually these other villains, because the villains just weren't up to the forefront. Mostly Thanos was their main one, and then Loki. And that's about it for the most part. Some of the villains had some interesting moments and whatnot, but overall, you're probably not going to see them again, So anyway, Yelena, the new, oh no, wait, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Yes, Valentina, who runs Ox and is in the Avengers Tower, and they find out that Bob was part of an off-the-books experimentation she was running to create a super soldier. But she's the least of their problems, as Bob, a.k.a. the Sentry, has a darker and uncontrollable alternate personality, the Void, which is slowly starting to come out. And so if you know the comics and what you recognize what you saw in the trailer, that's the Void using his power, wiping people out and all that sort of thing. So the Sentry had always thought that his evil nemesis was the supervillain called the Void in the comics, but it was really him, a separate part of himself that split off, and he was constantly battling with it and all that. He's a messed up guy, but then again, look at the power he had. It would mess up anybody. So anyway, Elena eventually calls Red Guardian. So this is interesting. As this plays out, it appears Red Guardian and Bucky are not in the movie at this point. Bucky, it reveals this here. So she calls for the Red Guardian. So he comes in, and this is sounds like the third part of the film or so far, after all this. I guess after they've broken Bob out and then they confront Valentina and realize what's going on here, all of this sounds like a lot would have happened by then. And so you're in the third part of the movie before Red Guardian has at least more of an active role. He might show up here and there earlier on with Yelena talking to him and stuff. But anyway, she calls for backup, and he joins the newly founded team. Bucky, on the other hand, is now a congressman. So he may have more scenes as a congressman early on in the movie, which you do see him in the trailer in a suit and tie at the meeting where Valentina's explaining the situation with no Avengers and all that. And so that's probably the most you'll see of him at the outset until the third part of the film where everything goes to hell, So, but we'll also join the team. Yes, it says it in the third act of the movie, and the 6 misfits, who will be known as the Thunderbolts, named after Yelena's elementary school soccer team. So it's not Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. It's her soccer team. Okay. No, that's not the real story, but that's what they're going with. So, the real story in the comics, of course, will band together and find their purpose again, as they'll have to stop the volatile Void and take revenge against Val. So which one of them is it going to portray them? Well, that would probably be Taskmaster. They might go for U.S. Agent. I would rather they didn't. I think there's potential in that character and Wyatt Russell, and I think they should make use of that later on as they go, if they try to go for it. I don't know if the MCU can last much longer. But anyway, nevertheless, the plot in and of itself is fine. It's these guys who were bamboozled and used as dupes. I'm not entirely certain what she intended for this, but I guess she wanted Bob unleashed to justify something she wants done. Probably more of the team that she actually wants that isn't them. And probably one of the members of her new team would be the traitor, which I'm guessing would be Taskmaster was always a villain. And if they're going to keep it that, but now that they've made Taskmaster a woman, they might want to make her more sympathetic and all that stuff. Just a mistake all around. They really messed up with that. But Taskmaster would probably be the traitor here in their group as that goes, as they face off against basically a Superman with God powers is what they're going to be facing in there. So don't quite know what her scheme is. It needs to make some amount of sense, just rather than just have a bunch of nuttiness and these goofballs who have to figure out how to work together even though they don't like each other and all of that. But altogether, it might actually accidentally be a solid film unto itself. But no one really cares. No one knows much about it. And, of course, all the attention went to Captain America, which was all negative. And Fantastic Four, people are hoping for the best. So far, sort of so good. It's intriguing and interesting. I don't know how it will land, of course. But for Thunderbolts, I don't know. But then again, word of mouth. And I haven't heard any stories about needing to do massive didn't do a whole lot, reshoots on that one. And so it has more potential to make a profit, even a small one, where it is. Whereas Brave New World has spent so much money, it's virtually impossible for them to achieve a profit on that one. So it might be the little movie that could, but we'll just have to see. Word of mouth is going to have to go a long way for it. But I can't say that I absolutely hate it. You know, it's just so far afield or far removed from the initial concept of Thunderbolts, with just little bells and whistles here for it. I mean, the Sentry was his own story. He wasn't a part of the Thunderbolts. I think they made him, he might have been a part of it later. And they keep throwing the asterisk. So at the end of it, they might start calling them the Dark Avengers, which is kind of what the Thunderbolts became at one time, with Norman Osborn leading the group and all that. So I don't know if they'll end up with something similar to that, leading into Secret Wars and all that. Who knows? But it might be an okay film. It might be a little fun. It's relying way too heavy, once again, on the Marvel formula of silly goofiness and comedy. But the jokes just aren't really there. It's not landing all that great. You know, they're trying to be a little cute there with the father-daughter thing, and it's okay. But this might be their darkest trailer, and it probably needed a little more darkness to show that, yeah, this is a very big threat. And the thing about the Sentry, I'm wondering if this does connect with Secret Wars, because if you are familiar with the character, it could, and they might be rewriting that too, where since they got rid of Kang, that Sentry might be the Beyonder. I don't know. Anyway, there you go. I weighed in on the Sentry, the Sentry. See, I'm already dropping the name. The Thunderbolts. Latest trailer.